Okay, here we go. So welcome. We are super excited to have one of our co-designers here today. She is going to be presenting our second session for the Scholar Virtual Summit. So we have Evangeline here. I'm going to introduce her and then she'll get started with the presentation. It'll be about 25 minutes or so, and then we will answer any questions you might have at the end. Feel free, though, if you have questions during the presentation, you can share them in the chat whenever, and then Evangeline can get to them when she can. Well, thank you, everyone, again, for joining us, and we will get started. Okay, so Evangeline Legg is a student researcher collaborating with the University of Sao Paulo, an international study of STEM education systems across the US and Brazil, with a paper currently in progress for publication in early 2027. She also serves in leadership roles, including Vice President of Tri-M Music Honor Society and Interact, while maintaining a 4.0 GPA and contributing over 400 volunteer hours in education, community service, and the arts. And we're super excited to have her as a Scholar co-designer this semester. And you can take it away.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to be part of this conversation that is growing more and more important throughout every year. AI in high school has been an issue, but also something we can improve on throughout the years. And I would love to share with you a way we can enhance thinking instead of trying to pretend AI doesn't exist in high schools. So before I begin, I would like to present a virtual tour of the website from a student perspective. So within classrooms like Dayspring Academy, we use Scholar for some of our classes. Me, prominently, I use it for Spanish and math. And I'll show you what it looks like for me. This is an intern account, so this doesn't have all my classes, but it'll give you a guide to what the student would be looking at. So this is the login page. So it has lessons, a streak, like your 3-day streak, questions answered, BaxterBot, which is my favorite feature. It's super helpful for like one-to-one AI tutoring. It's how long you've practiced, and all of these statistics the teacher can see. So it's super helpful for analyzing data for classrooms. If teachers want to address like a weak spot, they can target specific areas. Here's some of the chats I use. So for example, the first one I use is SAT scores. That's a big thing in high school. Scholar can give you like lesson plans for when you want to practice and how helpful it is for like key features. So this is just easy prompt I put in for an example. For the second example is a Spanish exam. This is a one I used a lot for Spanish because the program for BaxterBot actually is bilingual, has multiple languages in it. So it helped me learn greetings and just like the basic Spanish ones for my Spanish classes, because that was one I struggled with the most. So me and BaxterBot had a lot of discussions about that. And lastly, this is algebra formulas. So if you have questions about formulas or just a specific question about like homework, this is a super helpful guide because it sees your lessons, BaxterBot. Here is what the like lessons you would be looking at. So if your teacher assigned a particular subject for you to study that day, here's where you would look at it. So you can see this is what makes a great teacher. It's just an example for like a student intern. This is just things you'd be looking at. And all of these have assignments and lessons you would be learning, or students would be learning within their classrooms. And here's where the assessments would show up. This is one a lot of my teachers utilized when we were using Scholar. So when I had Mr. Gomez's class, he put a lot of assessments in here, and we always got statistics back on things we can study for, and he targeted those things that students were like consistently missing. Something excellent about Scholar is that teachers are able to get all of the data formatted for them so they can target the exact spot where students or multiple students are struggling, and even look at the single statistics of one student that may be having a hard time with the subject. So the big question is AI actually helping students or just helping them get by with like okay grades? And I think Scholar is one of the key features of this day and age that'll help students, instead of using ChatGPT to do their homework, actually help them think through the problem with a tutor. So some of the examples I like to use is there may be two students working on an essay. And one student is able to use BaxterBot and helpful AI to work through the problems of the essay. So help me with my thesis. How can I make this better for the rubric, right? And another student could just plug in the exact rubric and be like, ChatGPT, help me. Something excellent about Scholar is BaxterBot doesn't give you the answer. Like if you tell it to write an essay, it'll be like, no, I'll help you write an essay. Give me specific questions, which is super helpful for students or especially teachers that AI is a struggle with. Like students are just putting in AI work. Baxter doesn't allow this. It actually nurtures helpful like thinking within the student instead of just copying and pasting the answers, which is definitely a problem in high schools today. So here's the learning shift. This is where traditional public school process assignments go and AI enhanced ones. So this is the comparison bit. So in a traditional public school, it usually looks like you complete an assignment, submit it, wait for a grade, and eventually you'll get feedback, often 1 to 2 weeks later. In most cases, this cycle takes extremely long, and by the time the teacher is able to get grades in, because there's lots of students, it's long gone. The student isn't thinking about it anymore. However, with AI enhanced process, we're able to, students are able to get direct questions, 24/7 tutoring. So if they're confused about a question about the assignment, they can ask Baxter about their question, which is super helpful for quick thinking, quick one-to-one questions. This is AI and the future of student thinking. So this is my favorite part. It's about the statistics of real colleges and universities that are integrating AI within their programs. So Harvard University has a lot of statistics about AI-assisted learners versus ones that don't use AI within their everyday projects or lives. So according to Harvard University, AI-assisted learners ask more follow-up questions. This is helpful for deeper understanding. This could contrast to students not using AI as their like someone to talk to. This helps students organize their thoughts, Harvard says, and helps them organize what the idea is they're trying to get across and makes them more confident in what they're actually learning. Similar patterns have been observed through lead institutions such as MIT and Stanford. Across multiple peer-reviewed studies, students use AI tutoring tools end up doing more better in school, not because it's doing the work, because they're having a deeper understanding. And what's so helpful about Scholar is we're bringing that to a high school level. So students won't be pushed with AI when they get to a university or college level. They'll understand AI as a tool with the guidelines that Scholar or features use, and it could help them grow and be more confident when they are able to use be more free with their AI tools. Next, I have AI becoming a standard in higher education. 8 out of 10 of the top colleges have converted to integrating AI within their school systems. So Stanford refers to it as a human-centered artificial intelligence, or focusing on designing AI to support and enhance human decisions instead of just computerized decisions or inserting a prompt. This is what Scholar integrates into high school students or high schools and middle schools. So this would be, instead of the computerized ChatGPT, plug in your answer, copy and paste, it would be ask deeper questions without getting the maybe Google generated answer. So it would be more thinking about how students would approach a problem instead of getting the answer directly. So a change in perspective. This is how education Scholar an AI doesn't design how it designs students to get the not to get the final answer, but to instead get the answer themselves. A little bit like I was talking about on the last slide, AI can break down more complex details. Baxterbot and Scholar this is one of my favorite features. When I was doing math class, I had geometry and it was getting to the more difficult sections. So I was able to ask Baxterbot, please explain this concept to me. And after a lesson, it would give me the full rundown of every single step. After this, during a test, I was able to think back on what I was taught in a one-to-one AI tutor. And I was able to get the answer with a deeper understanding instead of like trying to learn it in 5 minutes, 10 minutes before a test. This would give me a deeper, more long-term understanding. So another helpful feature is the instant feedback. So that would be 24/7, go to your AI tutor, Baxterbot, and he would immediately give you a helpful answer, not just a what Wikipedia said. It would be, how can this student learn more through the lessons that the teacher taught instead of what Google says is right. Where Scholar fits into the classroom. So this is, so I've so far discussed AI and homework assignments, but in a classroom setting, it can look a little different. And teachers get the final say in what the students are learning. So teachers would be looking at all of the previous AI conversations that students have been talking about with Baxterbot. Teachers see exactly what students are speaking with, what they're clicking on, and this can be super helpful for data-driven assessments for the teachers. What can I focus on more? What are students grasping? What do students need a little more help with? And maybe they'll design their lessons more based on what students need instead of what a few questions that a student has asked. What this changes in practice. This is a student perspective, what I've seen in my high school experience with Scholar, and what also other students have seen. So first, it turns learning into a real-time thinking process. Students don't just get answers, but they're able to see their thinking through previous chats. Second, it gives immediate clarity. Confusion can get addressed right away instead of building up quietly over days and eventually leading in a bad test score or project score. This one is particularly helpful for me and my peers through our time in Scholar. After a teacher was done with the lesson, the teacher would give us 10 to 15 minutes to discuss what we learned with our peers and also with Baxterbot, questions we may have not been able to ask the teacher, or the teacher was busy addressing another student, we could ask a question directly to Baxterbot. This gave me and my peers an opportunity to see what we need help on instead of focusing on the things we're already confident in, which a lot of high school students tend to be doing. Third, it creates a more active learning loop. Instead of submit and wait for an answer, we can submit and get instant feedback to improve our final assessment, or not assessment, but homework score or assignment score. And lastly, it encourages low-stakes experimentation. So students can take a test, make a mistake, not get any points off, but understand what the mistake was. This makes learning feel less like a judgment and more like refined thinking. Benefits of an AI tutor. This is my particular favorite part of Scholar, is the one-to-one instant feedback benefits. So using Baxterbot as a way to think out loud is the most helpful feature for me. Scholar uses an AI tutor to shift question answers into continuous learning strands. After a lesson, you can test your skills with the bot, questions, and Scholar also offers other areas so you can ask questions to the teacher, send messages to the teacher, or just discuss with a bot to test your understanding. Learning moves from isolated assignments onto ongoing feedback loops. So consistently learning and improving your scores through time instead of submitting and waiting for an answer within 1 to 2 weeks. This is what students have to say. So my grade was able to be some of the first people in Dayspring to test out Scholar, and we used it. The main class we used it for was algebra, or geometry and algebra, and Spanish classes. Spanish was the most helpful for me and my peers because we're not super familiar with that, and it was our first year in Spanish. So we discussed a lot with each other and a lot with Baxterbot. So because Scholar was able to go to Dayspring Academy, we got feedback. I was able to get feedback on what high schoolers said. So Raina, one of my fellow high schoolers, I asked a comment on what they thought about Scholar. And they said their favorite feature about Scholar was the Baxterbot function. She said she mostly used it for Spanish, and it was helpful for the getting immediate feedback. And my other friend, Peyton, she said the best thing was the AI tutor that she could use whenever she needed help. Me personally, it was helpful for Spanish in particular, because I was able to write out the questions. When you're talking to someone, you maybe not get the grammar or the correct spelling. This actually helped me get better at typing or writing out in Spanish. So it really helps you organize your thoughts to get a prompt into Baxterbot so it can help you, which was the most helpful feature for me. As a final take, it improved clarity and encouraged more questions and exploration, breaks down complex ideas, and helped catch misunderstandings early. So this, when it was integrated into our high school, was one of the most helpful study things for me. And now, because I'm in different classes, I'm not taking as much Spanish anymore. And math, I'm able to get a one-to-one like direct line to my teacher. I use it mostly for questions about like creating plans for my week or SAT prep. So what am I going to do Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to prepare for my reading SAT coming up? So this is helpful not only for your maybe 5 classes that I was taking with Scholar, but also outside of school, just like if you're working on a project that maybe Scholar, you don't have a Scholar class for, it actually helps just organize your thoughts when you have a lot going on. So this was actually the most helpful bit for me, was the organization that it provides for me. Thank you so much for your attention, and I will take any questions or concerns or comments at this time.
Thank you so much. That was a great presentation. Feel free, anybody, if you have a question, you can ask in the chat, or you can come off camera or unmute to ask any questions or share any comments.
I have a question. First, I'd like to say great job. So you presented very well and you did a great job. I know it's nerve-wracking presenting to a lot of people, so kudos to you. My question would be, as a student, what advice would you give to a teacher when they are allowing students to use AI in their classrooms?
Some advice I'd give would be, I think AI is a way of the future. I think schools will begin integrating it very soon. But for teachers in particular of high school, I think putting training wheels on AI is a great way to get students like acclimated to eventually using AI, maybe more freely, but still having the reins on what they're using and what they're asking. So it's giving them freedom, but also putting a leash on it to make sure they're not overusing it.
Very well said. Thank you so much.
So I saw Mrs. White asked a question: do learners ever feel embarrassed about asking questions? So for Baxterbot, it's actually, I think, easier to ask questions about your specific subject. So instead of raising your hand in front of the whole class and asking a question, it's easier to just type out to a bot, and that'll give you immediate feedback without having to go up to the front of the class, ask a question. If you're embarrassed about it, maybe it'll be a simple response is what you needed. But I think for Baxterbot, students definitely feel way less embarrassed or not embarrassed at all for asking questions.
I have one question. I'm wondering what your thoughts are, either personally or what you've heard from other students. Do you think it's easy to kind of pick up on how to use Baxterbot or other AI tools as a student and use them appropriately, like you shared your different ideas? Or do you think it does take a little practice and like a little instruction from teachers on how exactly to get the best use out of AI?
I think that the actual website, when we used it, was very simple to use. The teacher gave a quick, like, how this works kind of presentation. However, I think it comes with, like, we're very, high school students are getting very used to inserting prompts or, like, confining their ideas into a sentence. So I think converting their question, like their thoughts to questions to send to Baxterbot was actually something that was very easy to transfer over to high school students at Dayspring, at least. For Dayspring, I never attended a physical education class. Mr. Kaya asked a question, have we seen students use AI in their physical education classes? So I haven't taken one, so I wouldn't have the experience to know if it was used for physical education or training for a sport. However, I know teachers are able to create lesson plans. So if the physical education had lessons or tests and assignments that quizzes students had to take, like such as quizzes, then absolutely it could be used for training and physical education.
One way that comes to mind for training for a sport is Baxterbot could help come up with a plan, right? You say what sport you're training into, or if you have a goal, and then it can create an actual training plan that would help prepare for whatever that goal is. So I think I can see that being one way, like a PE teacher could show students how to maybe come up with a work plan or a meal plan and, you know, tied to a physical sport.
Perfect. Well, any other questions before we wrap up our session? If not, thank you everyone for attending. We'll also be sending out a recording, but we have one more session tomorrow, our final one, where we have our last co-designer presenting tomorrow at 4 p.m. if you could join us live. Otherwise, we will send out that recording. But thank you everybody again and have a great night.
Thank you.